have you. Thanks for being here.
Rhett, it's great to be here. Just a quick spot for everybody. Here's the book, Restoring Our Sanity Online, a revolutionary.
And I've got my copy. Too.
Your copy's signed. Mine isn't. And then again, but this is such an important topic. And, for our listeners and viewers, the book is endorsed by, the true legend, the guy who invented the web, Sir Tim Berners-Lee. He says its vision matches his, and it's a vital read. It's also endorsed by Steve Wozniak. You all probably know him as Woz, co-founder of Apple. Woz also says it's a must read. If you're not happy with where we are, this is a must read, because we've got to get from here to there, got to take our power back. There's a huge opportunity right now. And the book roadmaps with a fascinating, Rhett, this. It's entertaining because I have a good sense of humor. So I'm going to footnote over 400 times as I tell you stories, from the trenches.
Wow, great. Well, Cynthia, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, big fan of Tim Berners-Lee. This is well, first of all, what an honor to have you here. And second, this revolutionary framework that you're talking about and that you discuss in the book, it sounds great. I'm curious, how would you incentivize big tech to prioritize this type of framework when, they're making all this money off of not using it?
Yeah, listen, Cynthia, that's a really key question, because the answer is there are no incentives in here for big tech. There are incentives in here to let's get the free market working. When you look at, and the book really looks at history a little bit. There's one of my favorite chapters that I wrote is the comparison between big agriculture, big energy, and big tech. And what happens in capitalism, the monopolization, how great startups turn into monopolies. It's really a natural occurrence without antitrust regulations, without somebody keeping an eye on making sure that free market capitalism works. So the book, this is why we say restoring our sanity. Really, it's let's take everything that we've learned. And I'm a veteran. I was one of the early inventors in Web 1 of social media. I built two, top PC Magazine, top 100 sites, Super Family and Super Friends. I came back to build MeWe and Web 2 to take on Facebook. And MeWe still exists. I left that company almost 3 years ago to write the book and to really help people understand, how do we really do this? How do we get it all the way to what I call Web 4? We've got a catapult Web 3, which I talk about in the book, 3 chapters dedicated to Web 3. And if you don't really understand what Web 3 is, and you're watching or listening right now, don't worry. Just about everybody doesn't understand what Web 3 is. And we'll have a moment to talk about that too. But Cynthia, to answer your question very succinctly, this is not a recipe for big tech to straighten it out. That's not how it works. Once there's a monopoly, then the monopolies rule, and it takes the free market, it takes startups to chip away. And you see this in agriculture, restoration agriculture. You see this in renewable energy. The big guys come along for the ride later. And there's a huge opportunity right now for startups to fix this. There's a bunch of problems to fix.
Yeah, that's interesting that you feel like this is going to be market driven, right? And that these big tech companies aren't going to really have a conscience about. They're not really that concerned about mental health or the things that we're talking about here. You talk about restoring privacy in the book and anonymity online, but in this era of trolls and bots that exploit these very principles, look at how they're targeting. I've got almost 20, or one a 20-year-old and a 19-year-old, and the bots are targeting them with misinformation all the time, and you should see some of the conversations we have about that. But how do we stop the spread of misinformation? Or again, is this a place where the market is going to come into play here, or a startup's going to come in here to play a big part in ensuring and protecting our privacy and our access to right information? What do you think about that?
Well, okay, everybody. So first of all, anonymity is not something that I support on social media.
Okay.
And I am one of the world's leading privacy advocates. And recently there's been some misunderstandings because I've written op-eds in The Hill, for example, that, user identification is the way forward in social media. And here's the thing. Our kids, right, mental health, the targeting, the misinformation, the body shaming, the bullying, and then the creeps. So, we've got, and the bots and trolls, right, who are just paying, and remember, anybody can pay to boost content. You can be a bot troll with a credit card because they all have them now because they're programmed to have them. That's why bots and trolls are blue checked on X. All it takes is a credit card, and in a nefarious country, Russia, China, wherever, they can program to use credit cards and program with the algorithm. So, but here's what we got to do. For kids, we need user ID verification. Now, hold on to your hat. And I know I have a ton of agreement on this. The bots and trolls get pretty pissed off at me. But they already know who we are. So let's start with this premise. They, and who's they? You want to ask? Okay, so they, the governments, the social media companies, the marketing companies, the advertising companies, the data ecosystem, which has been collecting data on you and everybody for, well over a decade now. So they already know who we are. So let's put that knowledge to good use. And the only people, on social media, remember, I'm a huge advocate of anonymity for whistleblowers, for marginalized people, things like that. But that's not social media. A whistleblower isn't broadcasting on social media. They're going to news organizations. I'm talking about social media. We got to get, mandatory age verification. So Facebook, which for years has said 13 is the minimum age, but they don't verify. Even MeWe, with MeWe, we made it 16 because I think that's a very healthy age, but we don't verify. We don't want to collect that data. It's time for user ID verification systems. Parents can help. This is, by the way, a great area for the free market. We need, companies developing, fintech has companies that do this. So this, and then here's the beautiful thing. If we do user ID verification for all of us, because just to make sure we are real people, for kids, it's verifying their age up until they're 18, right? Once they're 18, it's fair game. You can be targeted, you decide. We're going to talk about how you protect your data in a second. But for all of us, imagine the support for democracy if we knew that we weren't getting gamed by a bot and a troll trying to erode our confidence in democracy, trying to make us hate our neighbor, anybody with a different opinion. We've got to do this.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're absolutely spot on, 100%.
This is big time.
One of my first jobs was at the first ever live streaming social media website. It's called Stickam. And I remember back then, same thing. It was live, right? So you could tell pretty clearly that someone was underage or not underage, but there was very little we could do about it. Now, we could send police to your house if someone flagged you, but we couldn't verify your age, even if you were clearly a 10-year-old, like on the camera. And many of the users were against it, to be honest, because the being live, advertisers wanted us to put all these guardrails in place. So we had to have 24/7 security, and we had to have all of these different things that other platforms did have. And there was a lot of pushback. This is obviously 2009, 2010. I'm curious how you see the everyday persons, up against, let me give you all my data. If I verify myself, I'm giving you this paper trail. Do we already have the paper trail, or what would the age verification allow us to do?
Well, a whole bunch of things. First of all, and we do need government help too. And the government's working on the Kid Online Safety Act, which passed bipartisan in the Senate, protecting kids' data, making sure they can't be targeted, their data can't be collected. Their news feeds have to be timeline ordered until they're 18 years old. So, and these are very important things. And also, here's the thing: once you've got user ID verification and you know that a 10-year-old is a 10-year-old, they're not going to get on social media if 13 is the rule. And in Australia, this is very interesting because it's such a hot topic. the Australian government, the Prime Minister has already said he's about to introduce legislation that will make it mandatory 16, and they'll have user ID verification to be on social media before anything can happen. Now, there's a lot of topics, and we're going to squeeze them in today. So everybody hang in there, because let's talk about your data for a second. So for a kid, if you're under 13, you're not on social media. That's it. Game over. If you're 13 to 18, then your data is going to be yours alone, can't be collected, can't be aggregated, can't be used against you. You can't there's no ads, there's no targeted marketing to you whatsoever, no boosted content allowed in your threads. And you can't be talking to anybody who is not also a minor. And here's the beautiful thing. In what I describe in Restoring Our Sanity Online is a system where, of course, you can have a pseudonym, particularly for grown-ups. You can have a pseudonym, no problem, because, sure, you don't want to identify yourself as Cynthia Johnson in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I know that's not where you live. But the point is you can still have a pseudonym, but the site knows that you're really 13 and where you really live, and if there's any trouble, or that you're really 50, and so the site knows, so the site can enforce its terms and conditions and can cooperate with law enforcement in the event of a problem. So, once you're 18, then it's different, because then you can opt into, the targeted ads, things like that. But Sir Tim Berners-Lee has come up with a brand new system, which I talk a lot about in the book, called data pods, and he's calling it a data wallet that includes the data pods. So our data will no longer be stored in these centralized repositories where, they're huge. There's a huge amount of information on us. They can really today anticipate our thoughts before we think them, because of how much they know about us, and because of the AI, which supercharges their targeting algorithm. Imagine this. AI can A/B test our brain in nanoseconds to know exactly what's going to keep us hooked, which is also why all of us see, not just kids, but grown-ups we know, who can't put their phones down, whether it's Twitter or X or something else. They can't put their phones down. It's the AI supercharged algorithm that knows exactly what's going to keep them stuck on their phones.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's a little frightening. But it's true. And right. We know that is true. And we see it every day. I'm thinking about Christmas presents, and I don't even have to say it almost anymore. And the things that I'm thinking about pop up. It's just bizarre. So you talk about mental health in this, and it's surprising to many. You talk about if this, in this new paradigm, or this new, if things work out like you're talking about here, that it actually could be a positive mental experience for young people, because we know now it's not. So talk about that a little bit.
There's a chapter in the book, that says, surprise, social media can be good for your mental health. Now, it's not really a surprise when you think about it. So for everybody, I love social media. I'm one of the guys who invented it. The whole purpose was to make us more connected with our family and friends, to find like-minded people, and to make the world a more connected, more harmonious place. So the vision, and Web 1's in the execution was beautiful, because there wasn't targeting, there wasn't data collection, there was none of this. There were no nefarious entities. A bot and troll wasn't invented. So what we want to do, we talk about restoring our sanity, which is really what it's all about. That application in Web 1, we want to bring that vision back and have it be fulfilled. Now, granted, today we need, you got to watch your kids. We got to watch our own selves on time. We got to watch the addiction. But when we move away, when we take control of our data, so, through these data pods that Tim calls, and the technology works, it's ready. When we allow ourselves to have also something called data portability, because with your data stored and controlled by you, then you can upload to a meta, but you can also download, because there are going to be standard protocols for how you get off platforms. Right now, it's called the network effect, everybody. Why do you feel like you're stuck? It's called the network effect. let's say you want to leave Meta, or you want to leave a place where your family and your friends are, but they're not coming with you because they're stuck there. Because you can't just download your data and take it with you. And yes, those of you who are going, wait, can I download my data on Facebook? You sure? You can. Takes them a while to create the packet, but that packet is so jumbled, you can't upload that anywhere, which is why no one has ever built an uploader to take your Facebook content and upload it somewhere else. My former company, we did that when Google Plus went out of business. We built a really neat uploader. Engineers are great. We took the packet people downloaded from Google Plus, and we could upload it to MeWe and sort it. So your posts and your pictures, your videos, all that stuff went to the right place. With data portability and with standards for the protocol, we'll be able, this is really going to supercharge the free market, by the way, we'll be able to download our content and go, I'm done here, and get our whole group of friends who feel the same way, but they'll be able to do it. Download your content, take it off, move it over, upload it to someone whose products and services and philosophy and ethics you support.
Wow.
This is all coming, by the way. None of this is pie in the sky. This is all coming. This is all right around the corner. I, by the way, as the founder and former CEO of MeWe, I was subpoenaed. I've been subpoenaed by the Federal Trade Commission in their antitrust case against Meta. I've testified. I've provided declarative statements. I've provided hundreds of pages of documentation of Meta's interference with MeWe. I know Snap did the same. They had a Project Voldemort where they documented everything that Meta had done, to try and interfere with them. And Facebook basically had put virtually every competitor out of business. Personal social media. Facebook is a personal social media platform where you're connected to your family and friends in a different way than you are on a TikTok or an Insta or an X. And so there's only a few personal social media companies left in the world. So, and that's Snap, MeWe, Facebook, etc. So the interference Facebook has done is massive, and the government has a big case against them.
Yeah. I'm just going to go with what I remember. I remember that same live stream social media site I worked at closing down, and they had to pay out these severances to keep engineers around to give people their content. We couldn't just download it. It was such an undertaking. And I know, we're live also on X here. They only store your data for like 30 days. And I know what the cost was 15 years ago. So, similar here. I wonder if we're able to download our content, and as you're saying with MeWe, and you could sort certain types of files with Web3. Now you said you have 3 chapters of Web3, and then you kind of skip over to this Web4. Is that data sorting what you're talking about in Web4? Because it sounds like it might be.
So Web3, also an important parameter of Web3 is you become in control of your data. So Web3, everybody, basically the fundamentals are it's engineering built on blockchain, and it's the currency of exchange are cryptocurrencies, and it's a very what's called decentralized, also, so that moderation and other things are handled by users more than the company itself, and so there are a couple of fundamental problems. Also, Web3 promised anonymity, which is a completely false premise. So for all of you who know and all of you who don't know, the blockchain will always preserve your identity and anything you post forever. So there's really no such thing as taking it down and retracting it. And it knows who you are, and your identity is easily traceable. Blockchain also doesn't scale properly for social media. Companies have tried to scale blockchain for social media for years. Social media involves so many data and content transactions, in the number is just, you can't even calculate it. It's so massive. Blockchain is clunky and slow. It's great for fintech, great for other applications. It's really weak for social media, where also you may have more than 5 or 10 million users. You got 50 million or 500 million or a billion. Forget about it. Blockchain doesn't work for that. And then a fundamental aspect of Web3 and social media is the user remuneration. One of the promises of Web3 is that everybody benefits, everybody gets money, everybody gets cryptocurrency, and you get this by upvoting and downvoting all the content that you're viewing. And forgive me, everybody, but I think this is just a completely absurd premise, and it's been proven to be, because there have been Web3 social media companies since 2016, 17, 18. There's Mind, Steemit. They've never been able to get more than 1 million active users at any given time, because human beings don't want to monetize their relationships. We want to communicate. We want to be together. We want to be hanging out together. I don't want to upvote or downvote my sister's posts, or my best friend or friends, or somebody who's a common interest. That's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in communication. That's why it just doesn't have the appeal.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. One of the things you talk about in the book, and we had some good discussions about this in Lisbon recently at Web Summit, but you talk about distinguishing facts from opinions and lies online, really. And in a world where misinformation spreads like wildfire, and corrections, well, they just don't really happen, or nobody pays attention to them, right? Kind of like the newspaper. Nobody ever pays attention to corrections in the newspaper. But how do we rebuild trust and trust in what we read online, trust on and maybe in the news, period, without really resorting to censorship? Is there a way?
Absolutely. There's a way to fix all of this, and actually, it's really not that complicated, everybody. We've just sort of taken a wrong turn. So there's a parallel highway that's got it right, but we're on this bumpy road because we took a wrong turn. It's called the monopoly turn. Now, first of all, Rhett, imagine for a second a web where, AI supercharged good guys have, with user ID verification, are able to keep bots and trolls almost entirely off the web, particularly on social media. We're talking about social media. Immediately, we know that any opinion that's being posted is actually a real person. So we have this ID verification. So that's going to immediately take out 99% of all the false inflammatory commenting that's going up. Now, in the book, I talk about a different kind of moderation too, because you still, of course, need moderation. And, I've been interviewed everywhere, and of course on Fox, on all, CNBC, everybody, because all I talk about is common sense. So I don't pick a political side, I pick common sense. So first of all, there's an opportunity for new platforms. News Nation is a good example of a new one that's committed to giving independent, verified news. So there's an opportunity for more new news platforms. As I said earlier, there's an opportunity for user ID verification systems and companies that are really good at this and that can get sort of a rubber stamp of approval, and then supply a social media company with be the verifier for them. We can do this. And in the book, I have a chapter called Facts, Opinions, Lies, Who Decides? Now, in this case, every site is entitled to have their own terms and conditions. That's a given. These are private companies, or they're public because they sold stock, but they're entitled to have that and to enforce that. But with restoration networking, we're also going to have a user advisory board. We're going to have a jury of your peers if you contest something, and we're going to wait. Because we're going to have a rule. Let's say, for example, if 100,000 people flag a post, then it's got to be investigated. So, and the whole, the users will always know what's that number of flags in order to have a post investigated for verification. Because there's a curious thing read about verification. If you start to verify everything, like some platforms are doing, or not verify, say a post is false, because that's what you do, then people start to assume that everything else is true, when hardly anything has been investigated. So you really have to be careful about how you do this. And so, in the framework that I talk about in Restoring Our Sanity Online, we'll talk about really cool ways that are efficient, that give users trust and confidence, and that are neutral. Because the other issue is there's all this bias. For years, Facebook clearly had some kind of more progressive bias. X now clearly has a conservative bias. They limit the New York Times and other, links. And what we really want, everybody wants, Twitter, with all of its flaws before Musk, was actually a pretty good site because we could, it was generally going to be, news that was unbiased. Even, we were able to filter out. And Rhett, you're hitting on another key point. Everybody, you want to pay attention here. It's called critical thinking. It's so hard to critical think today when we've got deep fakes and we've got, all these bots and trolls and all these lies that we can't figure out. Facts, truth, lies, who decides? So we get rid of the bots and trolls. We put in much better verification systems, and we're onto something.
Let me ask you this real quick, though. And sorry to jump in on you, Cynthia, but is there a timeline on this? When we were just in Lisbon, everybody's talking about 2 years, and we're more specifically about things like AGI and sort of this massive evolution and progression of AI. Do we have a timeline to really sort this stuff out, or what's your view on where's this critical inflection point where it's going to be too late?
It's never too late. So, in a strange way, let's say talk about privacy. Because what I'm talking about, everybody, yes, we're going to sacrifice anonymity on social media. And this is really important so that we can save democracy, we can save civil discourse. And Rhett, one of my favorite things to talk about, just to say, is that the backbone of democracy is disagreement. So we have to nurture our ability to disagree without hating each other. And we don't really hate each other. The bots and trolls have inflamed us to the point where if our neighbor has a different view than ours, then we're angry. There's a lot of hate that's unnecessary. This is perpetrated by, entities, nefarious entities that want to disrupt democracy. It's pretty well documented, for example, now that Brexit was a complete bot and troll, disruption. So, how soon? First of all, it's never, our privacy is, they have so much data on us, forget about it. But for our kids and for the future generations, we can get privacy back. You control your data. Sure, we'll have user ID verification. So at least we know that, you're 35 and you're female, or you're, 10 and you're a boy and you shouldn't be on it. We'll know all that. But your data is going to be private again. And this is all right around the corner. Kids Online Safety Act already passed the Senate. Hopefully the House will pass it. I'm writing a piece now on what Trump's legacy can be, and I will include conversations about COSA, about the American Privacy Rights Act, because we're the only really civilized country without a Privacy Rights Act. That also has bipartisan support. And as I said, Australia, I think Spain also, countries are moving very rapidly towards user ID verification and minimum age for kids on social media. This is all happening. Tim Berners-Lee's system is ready. So it's almost like, and Web3 is just going to wash out because they all know it doesn't work. This is why I call it Web4. And the book really talks a lot about Web4 and what Web4 is and restoration networking. Here we come, baby. Here we are.
Love that. Restoration networking. It's beautiful. I feel like we could go on forever. We're at time. Do you think we have a moment for one more? Or
Yeah, I'd love for people to know how they can get the book, how they can get in touch with Mark. I know, Mark, you speak and you do media, and so we do have a lot of media and people watching this. And so if they want to get in touch with you and how they can, get you to come speak to their organization, or if they want to interview for something, or they just want to buy the book, even better.
Listen, everybody, the book is, thank you, Rhett, by the way. And everybody, I love Rhett, and I just met Cynthia today, but these are great people. And it's such an honor to be on your program. Restoring Our Sanity Online, highly entertaining and informative. Also, almost every chapter has action plans you can take right now for yourself, for your kids, how you can, spot a deep fake, how you can avoid being fished, all this stuff. It's all in here while you're sort of chuckling the whole way through with my tongue-in-cheek observations about the industry and anecdotes. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. If you can't find it at your bookstore, please order it. Independent bookstores can order it. Please support. We want to get this conversation out. So if you buy it, you read it, you love it, please buy one and give it to a friend. Give it to a school, give it to a library. We've all got to be empowered. Part of this is taking our power back, because once monopolies take over, we think we don't have any power. Everybody, we've got all the power. You can email me, Mark, M-A-R-K, at restoretheweb.com. That's Mark at restoretheweb.com. So, and then, you just keep an eye out. I have a website, markweinsteininventor.com. It's MarkWeinstein, inventor.com. Inventor, I-N-V-E-N-T-O-R. And you can sign up for a newsletter there. Follow me, listen, you've got to watch me on the media, because I'm very unusual in this regard. I'm not broadcasting on X. I have an X account to DM, influencers and have private conversations. Broadcast, I think, is one of the reasons why the media likes me, because, I'm just in, CNBC, Wall Street Journal, LA Times, wherever it is, Fox, I'm everywhere telling you guys what we need to know right now to get this all sorted out and to help ourselves, our families, our country, and the world.
Yeah, that's Mark. I don't know anybody that wouldn't be behind a movement like that. I know that we all have kids, and I know all of our friends are super concerned about, the future online and what that's going to look like. And so, what a timely topic and what a timely book. So thank you for being on today.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rhett. Thank you, Cynthia. It's an honor to be here. It's up to us, right? And we can do this. So let's get it done, everybody. We got this.
That's right. Well, you can join us, Bestseller Live, at bestseller.live. And you can join our newsletter. You can go to the website. You can catch past episodes. And Cynthia, thank you. And we'll be back. We'll be back for our next episode in a couple days. And so thank you very much for being with us and joining us here on bestseller.live.